All right. All right. Well, that was loud. That was a bit loud. Okay, how's everyone doing? Sorry I'm late. I know it's classic that I wasn't going to be late. I was planning on not being late, and then it seems like every single time there's something. There's always something. Always something. Oh, sorry about that. Is everyone doing well? I'll give just a little bit of time for people to creep in. Give just a little bit of time, and then we'll jump right into the news. So I have some pretty interesting things I'm going to give you guys. I actually drew up, I'm pretty proud of this. I drew up a timeline of the new, we've been using the Gregorian calendar, and I've drawn up a new calendar all based around what I call the boy orb calendar. And so, yeah, I'm going to show you guys that. It details out the chaotic 4 days of OpenAI's implosion and rebirth. So we can go over that if that's interesting to you guys. There has been some interesting rumors. I actually wanted to, I know that we talked about some of this last week, but I wanted to cover some of it because there's been some interesting rumors around what they call an AGI, which you can think of as, I actually really hate the name. And I'll get into why I hate the name. Let me tell you why I hate the name. You don't look at a plane and say, hey, look, there's artificial flight. No, the plane is flying. The plane is flying. Okay? You don't look at somebody swimming in water and say, hey, look at that artificial swimming. Or a boat in water and be like, hey, look at that artificial swimming. No, they're swimming. They're swimming. So if you actually create machine intelligence, we should call it machine intelligence. That's what it should be. Silicon intelligence. There's a bunch of different things, but it's actual intelligence. That's what they're saying when they say AGI, which I really hate AGI because what does AGI mean? And you can say like artificial general intelligence, but what do they mean by artificial general intelligence? They mean something that's actually intelligent. That's what they mean. And I'm here to clear that up for you. So don't worry about it. And that's why I hate AGI as a name. It's just machine intelligence. That's what they're looking for. Anyways, there have been some very interesting rumors about why Sam got fired in the first place around AGI. Part of these rumors came out because the old board, and I say old board, never came forward and told anybody why they fired Sam. They said miscommunication. That's it. They're like miscommunication. That's why we fired Sam. So we're going to cover that. We will cover that in just a second. All right. Let's go ahead and jump into it. All right, so let's first start with the boy orb calendar. Here, you'll find it documented. This is the history. Now, I have mapped these to Gregorian calendar dates for you to make it a little bit simpler. But this is the whole basically thing. We had the call with Sam on November 16th. And on November 17th was the public announcement, and Brockman publicly quits OpenAI. From the 17th through the 21st, investors and Microsoft completely throw a fit. And they throw a huge fit. Hey, Russell, how are you doing? Did you guys miss my intro? I could go back to my intro. I have a fantastic intro. I practiced it. I didn't actually practice it, but yeah, how are you guys doing? So we're going to talk about OpenAI really quickly, about just what happened and some of the rumors that are going around on it. You can go back and watch the intro. I had a fun little skit with it. But what we're doing is talking about what has happened and some of the rumors and why these rumors came out about AGI. And really my thing about it, and I'll probably make a short out of this, is I don't like the name AGI because it's artificial general intelligence. What does that mean? They mean something that's actually intelligent, machine intelligence. They should just call it MI, machine intelligence. That's what they mean by AGI. But AGI is just confusing. So there's a lot of rumors about AGI or machine intelligence that have come out of this because the old board's response was so bad. Their old board said, hey, we fired Sam because of miscommunication. Oh, that's awesome. Get those steps in. Be more fit than me. So, November 17th to the 21st, I drew this up for you guys. Basically, investors and Microsoft, I misspelled. No, I didn't. It looks like I misspelled Microsoft. Anyways, Microsoft throw a complete fit. Including Microsoft offering to bring Sam and everybody from OpenAI on board for a new adventure. And on November 20th, roughly 500 of OpenAI's roughly 770 employees say they'll quit. On November 20th, the third, you're hearing me right, the third temporary CEO was appointed. So OpenAI has burned through temporary CEOs over the weekend through this entire time. I don't know what's happening here. I would love to talk to those CEOs, those temporary CEOs. I have hopefully deduced their emails and sent them an email. I doubt they'll speak with me, but I'd love to know why they were going through CEOs like that. Temporary CEOs, like, yeah. And the old board is out and a new board, and Sam reigns supreme now at OpenAI. So there is a new board. There's only one person that from the old board that stood. So this is the new calendar that we're going to base everything off of. Boy is before OpenAI's implosion, and Orb is OpenAI's rebirth. So basically, November 21st will be 0 Orb from now on. That's what we're going to make our calendar off of. Burning through CEOs faster than Microsoft or burning through OpenAI credits for Copilot. Yeah, pretty much. They went through quite a few. So Sam is back at OpenAI. A lot of people thought that Sam was going to Microsoft to do a chip thing. I would love to see if they are just planning on doing that inside of OpenAI. By a chip thing, I mean a chip thing for artificial intelligence. And so this is where, like, I have these quotes here from the board, the old board, that is what's really making people question why they decided to fire Sam, because they really didn't say a whole lot. And all they would say is this is a breakdown in communication between Sam and the board. That's literally everything they would say. And so now there's a bunch of speculations because of different other things not related to this that Sam Altman and the crew have developed or had a breakthrough that will let them develop an AGI. And that's what got the board scared, that they would actually achieve their goal. Now, again, AGI is a bad name for it, but that's okay. That's okay. That's what everything here has accumulated from. So that is the saga. If you guys wanted it or not, that was the saga. And now we can get on to the cloud news and whatnot. Have they created an AGI? Have they developed something like that? Who knows? Who knows? I'm sure we'll find out. I would encourage them to call it an MI, a machine intelligence. AGI is just confusing. All right. So in security, we had a couple interesting things that I think you guys will be interested in. Actually, one really big thing and two things that are kind of, I debated about whether telling you or not about them. So let's jump into them. This was Thanksgiving week, so there was, the news was slow. We didn't have a ton of news, which was good because I was also super busy during it. So, has my secret leaked? Really cool website. Really cool website. I'm going to post this link here. Has my secret leaked? From GitGuardian. It basically helps you check for your secrets. And they have a little how it works, and you can read the docs. I found this here by the Hacker News, Tell Me Your Secrets Without Telling Me Your Secrets, which was a pretty cool little thing. So basically, they had to do this thing where it's like, to look for your secrets, I have to know your secrets, but you can't tell me your secrets. That wouldn't be secure. So this is actually a kind of cool write-up on how they did some of it. So I would encourage you to check that out if it's interesting. This kind of actually, we talked about this, Tell Me Your Secrets Without Telling Me Your Secrets. We talked about this with removing information, security-related information from HAR files, the archives, the Internet Archive files, and how you might be able to do that. How could we provide that service where you could trust us? Because, you know, you're giving us that sensitive information in your hard file, and you just have to trust me that I'm not doing anything with it. So anyways, this is a similar type of issue, and it was really cool to read about. Anyways, this is also kind of cool. So I haven't used it, but yeah, I thought it was worth giving him a shout out. All right. Kubernetes secrets of Fortune 500 companies exposed in public repositories. Again, this is why you need has my secret leaked. I don't know how many times this has happened. It seems to be the hardest thing to get developers to not commit their keys to Git. We need better tooling. I actually think it's a tooling failure. This right here is a tooling failure. And the reason I say it's a tooling failure is because Git wants to check everything in that's in that directory. And a lot of the times our tools want us to basically put everything in the directory that has our secret and whatnot. Now, I have made best practices that I've practiced myself where I don't do that. A file with a secret never gets in that directory. Maybe it's a little bit more painful, but I think it's a tooling issue, and it's a bad issue. It's an issue that has plagued software development for far too long. This should be solved. This should be solved. And then General Electric is investigating claims of a cyber attack and data theft, though I have not actually had any follow-up. So other than that, there was nothing else in security that I saw that would really affect developers on a day-to-day basis. I'm trying to limit it more to that. Yeah. All project creation tooling should include a git ignore file. I like it. Do you know what I think is maybe even better? I haven't done it a whole lot, but the idea sounds better. What if we had git include files? So you ignore everything by default, and you have to specifically include. Specifically say, I want .rs files. I want this file. And if it's not in the include file, it doesn't exist. I think it sounds painful, but I think it might be the way to go forward. Every project ignores everything except the specific things. So when you do cargo init, it will create a git ignore that ignores everything and just includes RS files and TOML files. I don't know. Like I said, it sounds more painful. I don't know. Because it's impossible to ignore all files. You could just put a text file in there with or a .env. And so if you haven't ignored it, it's impossible to ignore everything. So why don't you just make it ignore everything and then include the things that are for a Rust application? Because most Rust applications don't add anything special. And so you can just include those. And then if you do add something special, you can add it to the include list. I don't know. It was just a thought that I had. All right, cloud news. I think the biggest thing... to hit the cloud news is there is 61 billion reasons this is the biggest deal. I've seen 61 billion reasons and 63 billion reasons. I'm not sure if we really care at this point. But 61 billion reasons. If you go to VMware.com, now says by Broadcom. So the acquisition was completed. Broadcom is now VMware is now a Broadcom solution. Now we're going to have to see what this does to VMware. VMware was ruthlessly broken up in divisions, 4 divisions, and restructured very significantly. So there's basically 2 ways that you can do mergers. You can try to do what IBM did with Red Hat, which is, hey, really at first we're not going to do a whole lot. We're not going to change a whole lot. You're just going to be owned by us now, and we're going to have some say in how you do stuff, but the structure of the company isn't going to change. Or you could take the Broadcom approach, and this is historically what Broadcom does. This isn't new or unique. So people who were surprised by this haven't looked at Broadcom's history. And basically they slice the company apart and completely integrate it into Broadcom. Now, whether this is better or worse, I'm not a business specialist, but that's the 2 big ways that I've seen this happen. And this is commonly what Broadcom does historically. It didn't take an expert. I just did some Googling. This is what Broadcom does. So it has been ruthlessly integrated, assimilated. It's like I think it's the Star Trek Borgs. Futile resistance is futile. I said futile is resistance. Resistance is futile. It's been ruthlessly assimilated into Broadcom. So there's that. On top of that, we have some strange stuff going on with Alibaba Cloud. Alibaba Cloud was the largest cloud, or is the largest cloud in the Southeast Asia region, and it was growing rapidly. Then it's calmed down. It's stopped growing rapidly. And because of that, Alibaba looks to spin everything out into their own divisions. So then they were going to make 6 big divisions of Alibaba that each division could move independently on its own and have its own goals. And then they were like, well, Alibaba Cloud, we're actually going to spin out to its own company with its own CEO and own structure, not just its own independent division. And now, about a month ago, the CEO, the guy that was going to be the CEO of Alibaba Cloud, the guy that worked through it all the way through and brought it to life, left all of a sudden for no good reason. And now Alibaba is not even going to spin it off into its own division. It's going to keep it as a monolith company, and I don't know. So I'm bringing it to you guys. I'm not sure. I don't do a whole lot with Alibaba Cloud. I don't know a whole lot. I have been following this, and at this point, they're not spinning Alibaba Cloud off, and they're not even making it its own division. So I don't know if that has to do with the original person's leaving. I assume that it does. I assume that the new leadership has made this choice. Or the leadership disagreed, and that's why that guy left. Futile. This would have been what they said if they had simulated Yoda. Gosh, I'm so bad at English. Sorry, I screwed up the Star Trek. I lost all my Star Trek fans. Gone. All right. Amazon re:Invent this week, Monday through Friday. So next Sunday, I'm going to try to do probably just re:Invent stuff. I don't know that I'll have time to do anything else because Friday starts our winter games. So I'm going to try to keep up with re:Invent, but that's all we're going to cover on news next week. Usually they drop a bunch of stuff. And so I'm going to try to keep up with it as best as I can and report the things that are most interesting. But I'd love for you guys to bring anything else that is. I'm probably just not going to be able to keep up, unless there's something major, unless if OpenAI decides to fire Sam Altman again. That would be hilarious. I think it would be hilarious if the new board decided to fire Sam Altman. Yes, but re:Invent is happening. Usually re:Invent does drive the industry a lot. A lot of the times you see GCP and Azure making sure to, and this is more historically. I know now they do some stuff that's not driven by AWS. But usually that stuff is to capture a niche that, they can capture. So a lot of the times AWS is really driving it. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in re:Invent. That being said, Amazon Transcribe is now, they have released a few things in the last 2 weeks. They did release a few things. Amazon Transcribe added more languages, so they've released that. Managed service for Prometheus launches an agentless collector for Prometheus metrics. Now, I have to warn you before you jump in on Amazon Managed Service for Prometheus. It sounds fantastic. It has a very interesting cost structure. So I think that it could be you need to be careful. This is one of those that has a cost structure that I think could be very expensive for unique cases. And basically you pay per query that you run, which is maybe fair. But that means if you have people querying it, they could cost you a lot by just making random queries and running them and testing them. So it's something to be careful about. It's also a very complicated cost structure. So I do warn everybody that it's using what they call AMP, Amazon Managed Prometheus AMP. If you're going to use AMP, be careful. Be careful and make sure you understand the pricing structure before you just jump on it. Amazon EFS now supports up to 250,000 IOPS per file system. This is pretty fantastic, and I think it is the best in class in the clouds. Now, I wasn't able to find Azure's because I know Azure's is pretty good. So I couldn't. I spent about 5 minutes Googling. I obviously Googled the wrong thing. I'm sure it's out there, but I do believe it's either best in class or right up there at this point. And last thing from AWS is they announced support for large language models in Amazon Redshift ML. So this has to do with their Redshift and being able to use SageMaker and all their other LLM stuff with Redshift. So now basically you get that Redshift baked into support baked in. So it's in preview. So if you're wanting to do that, go for it. Now, generally, I don't see a bunch of stuff from GCP and Microsoft, but there was usually I find we'll see some stuff from them in a couple of weeks. But I did actually see several things from both this. Well, I say this week. I'm counting like the last 2 weeks because I didn't really get to cover them last week because there was so much after I had a week off to go over. So last 2 weeks. But GCP, Vertex AI search has added new AI capabilities and features. So there's a whole list of new features. I'm going to post this. I'm not going to go over every single one of them. But if you're leveraging Vertex AI search, there are new things that they have added, especially around custom embeddings. So if that was something you were really wanting to do, there's quite a few improvements to that I saw. I looked over it. I'm not going to say anything was really groundbreaking, but there was definitely some things there if you're looking. Definitely improvements, and some of the things went GA, which just means that they're better. Should be more stable. There should be some standard for availability and things like that you can depend on. On top of that, this is confusing. 1 second. Why did I have this? I believe they updated. Let me read this really quickly. Oh, okay. So this was about their vector embeddings. So this was Vertex Search. This is their vector embeddings with Vertex Search. So they added some improvements on top of that to their vector embeddings, mostly covered over here as well. So just taking it from a different angle. All right, something that might actually affect the standard developer a little bit more is run hooks before and after deploying. So if you're using Cloud Deploy, if you're leveraging that to do your things, there are now before and after hooks. Now they're in preview, so maybe they're not the best thing to do or to super rely on, but I'm sure they're probably fine. So you can now do things before and after your things. So there's these hooks where you can run arbitrary applications or things to do it. So you could use it for cleaning up. I actually think that this is kind of cool. Now, I think you should be careful because this could get messy very quickly. I've seen things like this get messy, like, oh, how and where does this happen? And it's in this obscure before or after hook that has no relation. But I do think that this has some cool things for testing, validating a deployment has gone out correctly and is ready. You could have a before hook that validates that everything is in a good state. You could have an after hook that validates that everything is in a good state. There are several applications I think could be fairly useful in this. So I think this is pretty cool. I mean, obviously, if you're using Cloud Run, that's a prerequisite. All right, Artifact Registry had 2 updates come into it. Artifact Registry Remote and Virtual Repositories are now generally available. This brings GCP's Artifact Registry closer to things like JFrog. JFrog has a artifact registry, and so far JFrog and Nexus have been like the 2 really big players in that. And this brings us really close. So what is a remote and virtual repository? Well, virtual repositories are a way to tie multiple repositories into one. So let's say you have 2 teams that want to have their own repository with their own Docker files, whatnot, and they want to own those. That's great, but you want to provide customers one repository to access all your stuff. That's what a virtual repository does. That's what it does. It's actually pretty fantastic. The remote repositories is maybe something really cool that I need to talk to Dan a little bit about, because to see his take on whether these bring the security improvements that we think they are. So what a remote repository says is, hey, your engineers can only access your artifact registry. And if it's not in your artifact registry, they're not allowed to use it. So that could be Maven. When I say artifact, I'm not talking about just Docker containers. I'm talking about everything. And what a remote artifact says, okay, but you can use these images from Docker Hub or from this company, and basically makes a mirror inside of your artifact registry. So your developers just point to this artifact registry, and if it's not in there, they can make a request to get a thing reviewed and that remote added in. So it's a cool idea. Like I said, in theory, I think it's a cool idea. I need to understand it a little bit better in practice. And the last thing, a Cloud Run service was slow. Here's how we fixed it. So I don't know if any of you guys use Cloud Run. I don't, but I found this article fascinating. And if you do use Cloud Run, then you might be very interested in reading this because it talks about how they made their Cloud Run faster. So again, I'm not going to go over it because I don't know who here is used to it. And we have an ad starting, almost perfect. This is the end of GCP. So we'll let the ad play. We'll just chat while the ad's playing. But it was a really good article on how to improve this performance of Cloud Run services and the things to look into and how it behaves. So like I said, I don't actually personally have a Cloud Run service, but if I did, I found it interesting anyways. I read over it, and it was pretty interesting and pretty nice. Pretty nice. So those of you who are here, I'm going to be streaming tomorrow. I have tomorrow off work. I'm going to be streaming tomorrow. We're going to get sounds to the follow and subscribe. So we're going to do that tomorrow. I want it in place by the holidays. I have talked to my internet provider. We are getting new internet. Sorry, there's ads playing right now, so we're just waiting for the ad. I am the Null cloud will be down until we get dynamic DNS up, which is fine. Not a whole lot. You can actually sign in, but that's all you can do. And we'll get dynamic DNS set up. Oh, you get new internet this week too? Sweet. I wish I had a second provider. A lot of places in the US have at least 2 providers, and sadly I don't. I have a single provider, and it's garbage. And I hate Google Internet because they promised me fiber. They tore up my roads, and then they said, oh, shoot. It gets below 32. I wish there was a service where I could search for, does this place freeze or not? Yeah. You guys know my rant on Google. You know my rant on Google. I also want to make an ad screen like this so people, I found out that people can see the stream, like the little stream. So I want something that says like we're not going on. Generally during regular just programming, I go on, but during the news, I don't talk during the ads. Just if people are having to go through ads, we'll sit here together. Twitter Me Elmo does have an internet offering, doesn't he? It feels rough to get internet satellite in the city. I am in the city. 1 street away, AT&T fiber. 1 street. 1 street. I've actually thought about talking to one of my neighbors. And thought about talking to one of my neighbors. Running a really long Ethernet cable. All right. The ads are rounding up. Let's get back into it. All right. So as Azure goes, the general availability of PG Vector 0.5 extension is now generally available. Now, PG Vector is not generally available, but the support of PG Vector is. So anyways, again, this goes into your vector searches. So if you're looking to do that, I know everybody is nowadays because this is the realm of AI. Azure has some better support for it. Okay, so this I found is probably the most interesting thing. If you're using AKS on Azure, Azure Backup for AKS is now generally available. I know I talked about it when it was in alpha, but it is now generally available. It's released with a few more features as well as a service agreement, so you can depend on it a little bit better. Like I said, when things go generally available, they usually have a bar that they hit. And yeah, so I think this is awesome. DypoX, thanks for joining. So anyways, if you're using AKS, this is definitely worth checking out. Yeah. The other thing that I saw in Azure was the public preview for Kafka input and output with Azure Stream Analytics. So now Azure Stream Analytics, if you're leveraging that, lets you connect directly to Kafka clusters to ingest and output data. So basically, this is just a type coupling between Kafka and Azure Stream Analytics. And yeah, that's effectively what it does. After the news, DypoX, I'd happy to chat with you, and you can join the Discord as well. Happy to go over it. So anyways, this is really interesting and pretty nice to have. And that's it for the cloud news. Now we only have a little bit of open source news, and then we're good. That's all I had this week. I think a lot of it was that the Thanksgiving holidays, there was less stuff happening. And so, yeah, again, next week will be devoted to reInvent because I'll only have limited time because we're doing the AI games and I'm doing a lot of work for that. You don't want to miss it. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, AI games. I'm hoping they wrap up on Sunday, but we're going to keep going until the AIs can't do it anymore. That's the hope and goal, but we'll see. Hopefully they haven't been pre-trained on this information. All right, so let's talk about open source news. Biggest thing coming up, December 5th. December 5th, we have 129 of Kubernetes releasing this Tuesday, December 5th. Okay, I'll be doing release notes on this, but I'm not going to promise them soon because I have a lot of stuff going on in December. So there will be January release notes for Kubernetes 129. I think this is completely fair and okay because nobody upgrades to Kubernetes immediately after it releases. It's a big update for most people. Most people take time to upgrade. So this won't be doing the release notes. That video will be later. Now, that being said, I do have somebody to come on and speak about the release. Somebody that leads the release, actually. So somebody I worked with a little while ago. So we're going to have him on to talk about it in one of these news segments, hopefully in December or maybe early January, whenever I can get it scheduled with him. So anyways, that's coming out. Some cool things. KubeCon NA has finished. And yeah, you should be seeing some... I think it's 3 weeks out. They released the videos 3 weeks. The videos of some of those talks should be coming out. I know some of the big ones, like the main ones, already are out. So yeah. All right. So GitHub is releasing a new way to contribute. Okay, so for good first issue is a curated list of open source projects that are also digital public goods and need help of developers. So basically, there's always this tag on repositories that have good first issue. But if you don't know the project or whatnot, it can be difficult. And it can be difficult to find that project in the first place, unless if you're really interested in it. And then it probably doesn't even matter that it was tagged with good first issue. But if you're looking for digital public goods, things that are good for the general public, that have a curated list of open source that needs help, GitHub has curated that list. Now, I haven't gone through and validated that these are really good or really good for society or anything like that, but it's at least a curated list of projects that need help. And yeah, you can even select via the language. So let's say we want Rust. It's not organized. It doesn't have Rust as a language. This is garbage. I shouldn't have been on the news. Shouldn't have been on the news until they fix it and add Rust as a language to select. I mean, they have Ruby for... Disgusting. Let's move on. Highlights from Git 2.43. So Git 2.43 has been released. I know we don't talk about Git itself. You talk about GitHub, you talk about these other things, but Git is really the cornerstone, cornerstone. And all joking aside, it doesn't have Rust as a language. I didn't realize that, but it is pretty cool. So if you're a Python developer, and you have a goal, no poverty, good health and well-being, quality education, you want to do Python and quality education. Obviously, you can't have Python and a quality education. That makes sense. This makes sense. But you can select your thing and filter to whatever you want. So it is actually pretty cool. Actually, let me put this in chat. Rust projects don't need help. That's right. That's why Rust isn't a language on here that you can select. Just Python and TypeScript. Perfect. All right. So I don't know if anybody knows the git repack command, but if you do, it has learned a couple of new tricks. So I actually don't use git repack for a couple of reasons, but it has learned a couple of new things if you do use it. So if you're using it, you can now use it with -D to combine all of the packed objects. Like I said, I don't use repack, so I don't know if that's super useful for people. But yeah, a lot of new stuff has come out in it. I almost want to go over all the commands you didn't know about in Git, because yeah, it's there's a lot of cool stuff that has been added, including split repositories with object filters. So I encourage you to go check it out, because I obviously am an idiot at Git. That's what I learned. I've used Git for a long time, but I use 6 commands. I have the repositories command, I have the add command, and the commit command, and rebase. That's all. That's all I need. So I keep it simple. But you know what? Maybe we need to do a stream on learning Git commands, and actually leveraging. I'm not saying that I'm going to use them in the future, because repack, I've looked over repack. I don't know what I would use it for at this moment. I'm fine with how everything is, but it's probably good to know, because there's probably a good problem that it solves that you could use. So Get good. That's what we're going to call it. Get good with merit counts. Yeah, I would consider myself fairly good with Git. I'm not I am not an expert. I actually understand how Git works more than I do the Git command line. Actually, if you want to talk about how it does its trees and its branching and keeps track of everything, I know that way better than I know its command line. For sure. Actually, when I first became a developer, I'm self-taught, And Git was one of the things that I used a GUI. I used a GUI for like the first 5 of my 10 years of experience. And the GUI did everything with me. Or did everything for me. I hate to admit that. I'm canceled now. All right. That was the news. Did I miss something? I feel like I missed something over the holidays. They were kind of crazy for me. Let me know if I missed something, and we'll cover it. Always bring your favorite things if you think that there's something that should be part of the news. This is a community effort. You can let me know on the Discord or here in chat. All right. So, that being said, DypoX. You want to live troubleshoot a Kubernetes cluster? I have 15 minutes. Bonus content right here. If you'd like to, I actually will. What's up? You can join a voice channel on, you will be on stream. You can join a voice channel though. I actually think it would be really cool to do more live debugging. I loved Rawcode's thing, where you broke the Kubernetes. Why can't I remember what it's called? I love that because I think that debugging is a skill that we have lost. Like it's almost like a lost art. Like the really good engineers are really good at debugging and knowing how they screwed up. And like there's almost like a sense of like, oh, I bet it could be here. Clustered. That's what it was called. I love Cluster because you got to see how really good engineers, even if getting dropped into a Wordle shell, a restricted Wordle shell, isn't a real thing that would happen, unless you got hacked. You got to see how real engineers would think about the subject and would deal with the subject, and to see what their first thoughts were, or their tests or their tries would be. And so I would love to bring back debugging, like live debugging. Obviously, I do it, but like, and I don't know how that would work. We have to think about it. Actually, if the community wants to challenge me, I will live debug something they've made. 100%. You give me something that's not working, I don't care what language, we'll live debug it. Yeah. Oh, SSL handshakes within pods. Good luck, my friend. So basically, you're having slow TLS. I mean, DypoX, this would be a really long conversation. I can tell you maybe where to start looking, but there's a lot of questions that come up. Like, a lot of questions. So obviously, you're talking about a curl request without TLS works immediately, of course. A TLS handshake does take time. There's actually processing on it. So it's always going to be slower no matter what you do. There's encryption that happens. Now, why would it take 1+ second? Now, that is where you have to start. 10 times slower is an interesting problem. And so now I have not debugged this specific problem, but I would say that start looking at what handles your TLS and how that could be different. I'm going to hazard a guess here that you have something else in the TLS path. So if you're using Istio per se, TLS is routed differently and handled differently. And there's something in there causing a lot of work. There's something. Now TLS will be slower. How much slower, I don't know. 10 times seems a little bit much. This random thing says there's about 40 bytes of overhead for TLS. There's an extra handshake. And then there's the encryption itself. The AES block cipher, which is gonna bite you a little bit. Are you sending a large payload? Just a GET request. Well, you realize that the GET request still has to be signed, so it's really returning a payload to you. So you're saying, wait. So you're saying, let me draw this out. Let me draw this out. I need to draw this out because I need to. Also, I thought that this was fantastic. I don't know if people appreciate it. You're saying your network is here. Your network is here. And in your network, you have a service, and Google sits out here. And you're saying making a TLS request to Google from inside your network is slow. So this is not a TLS request. This isn't a pod to pod. This is an exterior. This is what you're saying? That this is slow? Now, you're also saying that your network is in Kubernetes, right? This is all in Kubernetes. Okay. So if this is the case right here, if this is the case, I would start looking at, So if this is the case here, I would look to make sure your firewall rules. Check and see. I say firewall rules, but like your network policies in Kubernetes. Check your network policies. See what you're having to do there. This is interesting. But you're saying they're slow, but they do work. Because if they're failing, something that people don't realize, and this is something that you need to make sure, if TLS fails from here, so if this is failing, this is actually a pretty common mistake people make. And the reason it is this container doesn't necessarily have the TLS certificates installed. So when you have a distribution like Arch here, there's certificates installed for Google. So if I go to google.com, I'm using TLS and it's secure, but that's because there's a root trust on my system that's protecting that. What happens is these containers don't necessarily have that. This was a problem in Debian. I think they've changed it, but in Debian Slim for sure, you don't get those TLS certificates unless you ask them. So you'll be able to make requests here and even TLS ones because you intrinsically think to install TLS, install your TLS certs, whether you're using something like Cert Manager or whatnot. But you don't think about it when making a public request. That just should work, right? And it doesn't work in these containers because you don't have them installed. A VM outside the K8s cluster works. So it's not your, so you validated that it's not your network because this out here works. So in that case, I would look at your networking policies. I would start looking at your network providers logs. So I don't know what you use, whether it's Cilium or Calico or whatnot, but whatever you're using as your CNI plugin, you start looking at the logs for those. So look at whatever Calico or Cilium is printing, or I don't know if you use Weaveworks or whatnot, but look at that plugin and see what it's doing, because I bet you there's some information there. Then there's obviously how you have configured Calico and Cilium. That's also out there. Okay, Cilium, yeah. So check out what that is. Try to understand the route that your traffic is taking. Another plugin that you can do if you've ever used plugins is there is a Wireshark. There's a Wireshark plugin. Ksniff, I believe it's Ksniff. I don't know if this is in workload or in a production, but if you have a dev scenario, you can start using Ksniff on that internet traffic. You changed out your CNI in the same cluster? That's brave. That's pretty brave. I am not gonna lie. So, oh, sorry, I hit the mic. So something you could try is TLS between your pods. If this works with your own certs, then you know it's something with your network going out of the cluster. Pretty much from here, from the K8 cluster, out to, your real network. And yeah, I'd start with Cilium. There's got to be some logs or something in there. I'd also Google, why would TLS be slow? Don't search with Kubernetes. And this is another problem. Identify the thing that's happening and look at the general solution. So too often I find some people to get hung up on searching for why would TLS be slow in Kubernetes? And search that first. Search that first. But if that doesn't yield results, simplify it to basic things. How does TLS handshake affect TCP and slow performance? Read that. Yeah, this isn't any good. This is garbage. Mine is terrible. Make a better one. Watch this. We'll ask ChatGPT. I have to log in. I have to get going here quickly. Here soonish. I'm going. The AGI, it's taken over the world. No, this wasn't that great. You can do this, but I don't think a second isn't. This is not helpful. Oh, well. I gotta upgrade. I bet ChatGPT 4 would know. I bet ChatGPT 4 would know. Yeah, let me know what you find. I want to do live debugging. I think it would be fun. I can't tonight. And the news is done. I can't tonight, but I think live debugging, some problems. If you guys ever have something you can share and we can do live debugging, absolutely. Open source project or whatnot. I think it's fun. I think it's a skill that you just have to do. You have to just do it. And I haven't debugged a ton of TLS issues, not slow TLS. I haven't. So I don't have any of those tinglings. But there's a lot of times where you see a problem and you're like, no, I think I know where this could be going. And that's what makes you really fast at it, is just have seen and dealt with the problems before, and you can start getting the ideas. And you know what? It's probably DNS. You know what? I'm going to make the call right now. It's DNS. Because anytime you have a problem in Kubernetes that you don't know the exact cause of, it's DNS every single time. And that's what I'm going to leave you guys with. Have yourselves a great next week. Remember, next Friday is the start of the Winter Games. You don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss it. Thursday, I'm releasing a YouTube video talking about what we're doing on over the all of December. So you don't want to miss that. I'm going to be releasing that. Tomorrow, I have off work. I'm going to stream somewhere midday. Don't know exactly when. And we're going to get Twitch alerts with sound. We're going to try to make this stream just a little bit better. So if you want to be a part of that, join me. Have a great week, everyone. And I'll see some of you tomorrow.